the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets! All the fans are true to the orange and blue, so hurry up and come on down, 'cause we got ourselves a ball club, the Mets of New York town. Give 'em a yell! Give 'em a hand! And let 'em know you're rooting in the stand. Come on and meet the Mets. Meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town, of New York town.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Talking Mets It Rob with another Mets Hot Stove live right here on the channel. Hopefully everybody had a safe and good Thanksgiving. Hot Friday, Black Friday is here and almost over, a few hours away from it being Saturday. And we actually got some interesting news from an interesting source that we'll get into a little bit later in the show. So make sure you guys hit on that like button. And if you're a new subscriber of the channel, don't forget to say what's up in the chat, and you get a shout out on this channel. So guys, interesting, Black Friday, there was, the Jets, showed up and not played football. Everything was, a normal type of Thanksgiving holidays. Don't expect a lot of news. And then you have Howie tweet out something very interesting that we will get into in just a little bit as well. But obviously, over the last week or so, there's been a coaching staff that has to be put together around Carlos Mendoza. The most important thing that me, Nelson, Chris, Hayden, and other content creators that are associated with the New York Mets talked about experience that needs to be around Carlos Mendoza, right? We don't know if Carlos Mendoza is going to be a good manager, great manager, bad manager, terrible manager, over his head. We don't know. But one thing we know for sure, putting an experienced guy next to him and a coaching staff that's experienced is extremely important. Too many new guys, too many first-time guys is just a recipe for disaster. So the Mets made an experienced hire as bench coach in former Mets catcher John Gibbons. And we all know Gibbons from his years with the Toronto Blue Jays. He had really good success with the Toronto Blue Jays, a couple of playoff appearances, a lot of interesting and good moments with the Toronto Blue Jays. And again, he got fired, which most managers do. But he's an experienced guy. He's a hard-nosed guy. He's a guy that don't take no crap from anybody. He is a guy that's going to have his players back and his coaches back as well. And Carlos Mendoza, we already know with him with the Yankees, he was the bad guy to Aaron Boone's good guy scenario, right? That's what we've known from Carlos Mendoza as a Yankees bench coach, right? When Aaron Boone used to get thrown out, Carlos Mendoza used to take over, and he had a fiery side to him. And with John Gibbons, it's just a combination, right? There's so long you can have a good guy at the realm. And, Buck Showalter, I wouldn't say consider he was a good guy, but he was, one of those guys that, just use his aura, use his experience to, talk to an umpire, not really get in their face and yell at them. Everybody didn't like that, but yet it worked in 2022, but not in 2023. A lot of people don't like that. What you're going to get from Mendoza and Gibbons is, balls to the wall, in my opinion, right? We saw John Gibbons with the Blue Jays. He had no problem voicing his opinion, and I think Carlos Mendoza is very much the same way. And there was also a couple of other coaching changes that I wrote it down. Where the hell did I put it? I put it somewhere. Oh, here we go. All right. So, nope, I lost it. Oh boy. Well, I know who they are. I just want to make sure I get the name. There we go. I got it. Here we go. Antoine Richardson from the San Francisco Giants is going to be the first base coach, and Mike Salbaugh from also the San Francisco Giants will be the third base coach. So we got a couple of guys, couple of coaches from the San Francisco Giants. It's from the Gabe Kapler coaching staff. It's going to be our first base and third base. No more Alex Cora. Obviously, he went to Detroit, and no more Kirby, Wayne Kirby, who was the first base coach. So we got Antoine Richardson and we got Mike Salbaugh along with John Gibbons. And, of course, Eric Chavez as well, and Jeremy Barnes is going to solidify, and Jeremy Hefner, of course, that's going to solidify our coaching staff going into 2024. I have no problem with the coaching staff. After we all had an idea that we knew the manager was not going to be Counsell, Stearns picked the next best guy he believes and wants to go in to his first stint as the New York Mets president of baseball ops as a guy like that. And that is something that I think is important. Everybody seems like they're going to be working together. It's going to be a collaborative effort. I know we don't like that as baseball fans, especially old school baseball fans who just let the manager write the lineup. It just does not happen very often anymore, and you can't expect that anymore. John, I'll get to your super chat in a second. I appreciate that. So, all right, guys, this is what we're going to say right here. The fact that John Gibbons and a couple of coaches from San Francisco are experienced guys, I think is only going to do well for Carlos Mendoza going into the 2024 season. Obviously, player acquisition is important. I don't care who the manager is. You need talent on your roster, right? We can always talk about Pete Alonso and Nimmo and McNeil and Lindor. That's a pretty damn good core. A lot of teams would love to have that core, but you also got to put people around them. You can't always rely on guys that are a crapshoot. And that's what I feel like the Mets actually have done the last couple of years. Either it was with veterans that they were hoping stayed healthy and did well, or it was youngsters, which the Mets tried to do once they realized that the veterans that they got weren't working out. They went to the kids, and the kids did okay, but nothing to help this core where we need it, right? Mauricio came later in the year, and he provided a little bit of that spark. DJ Stewart was a sign-in later in the year, and now he's going to be a part of the roster. The fact of the matter is, you got to put better players around this core, right? I would say around this core with Lindor being 30 and, Alonso being 30 and Nimmo being 30 and McNeil a little over 30. You got 3 or 4 years of these core guys being absolute elite status in their prime of their career. You can't waste those years waiting for your prospects that you currently have in your farm system. I'm not talking about Mauricio or Alvarez, even though they still have to develop. They're a part of this team as long as there's no trades. So, yeah, that's going to be important. But the guys you have in the farm system, we can't wait 2 or 3 years for these guys. This is not going to be the way, because if you're going to sign Alonso to a 7-8 year deal and you got Lindor for another 7 years, you got McNeil for another 3, you got you have Nimmo for 7. These guys at 34, 35, that prime slowly trickling away. You got to do what you got to do to make this team and this core the prime. You can't waste those years because you're going to be going at in 2028 and 2029 when these guys are 34 years old, 35 years old, and you can be like, oh, what happened? Oh, well, they wanted to wait for their farm system to develop. So you're going to go in with the core that you currently just signed, most of them. Over the last 3 years, you signed this core, and Pete Alonso is probably going to be the next one. It just does not make no sense to not put a better team around this core. You're wasting the prime of these careers. You're wasting extremely good years from Pete Alonso. You're wasting good years from Francisco Lindor. You're wasting career years from Brandon Nimmo. The last 2 seasons has been his best years. And even Jeff McNeil had a bad down season. But in 2022, had an extraordinary season, won the batting title. You're wasting these guys' career. And what the Mets did when Jacob deGrom was outstanding and winning Cy Youngs was wasting his career in his prime. You can't keep on wasting their prime and then saying, oh, patience. Yeah, we can all have patience. But when Alonso, McNeil, Lindor, Nimmo are all 34, 35 years old and you still don't have a core around them, I don't want to hear about the prospects that are finally coming up and might be a part of this team and might be producing and might actually be an MLB player, because we don't know. And we're wasting time here. We got elite talent like Shohei Ohtani, who is one of the best players in baseball, a unicorn. You got Juan Soto, who could possibly be traded. You got a couple of pitchers to develop this rotation. Obviously, Yamamoto is big. He's 25 years old. You have to actually do what you need to do to put a team around this core. I'm sick and tired of people saying patience this, patience that. What patience? Have anybody paid attention? We have not won since 86. We made the World Series in 2015. We lost. We made the World Series, and we did basically nothing the following year. And it makes no sense. We were so concerned about, let's develop our farm system. We can develop our farm system. You can still develop a farm system and make moves to make your team better at the big league level. It's time and time again. You see, every time when you have this area of moments, you have the 2, 3 year, 4 year window with the core of your team. You don't waste them. I'm not saying to trade 9 out of your top 10 prospects. And it depends on what the Mets do free agency wise to really worry about what type of trade they might need, because there's a bat that is on the free agent market in Shohei Ohtani that you need to go after. I don't care what anybody says. If you're not going to go after the best player in baseball at the prime of his career, even when he has Tommy John surgery, he'll probably be, if not your best bat, one of your best bats in your lineup. What the hell do we have Steve Cohen for? Might as well bring back the Wilpons. Because why have Steve Cohen's money and you're not going to go with the best player available? And thank God, and I'm going to skip a few of these options here and go to Ohtani with Howie Rose talking about and tweeting earlier today that there's some big Ohtani news coming today. Obviously, Howie Rose clearly heard something from the Mets and whoever he knows from within, and just he became a fan once he heard that news. Whatever it was, no matter, it's clearly good news, whatever that might be. Maybe Ohtani is more willing to come to the Mets than we originally thought, right? And maybe Howie Rose got that message, and his fandom, which he is a fan of the Mets, his fandom took over his media, aura, his media way, right? Not really getting too excited for the moment, right? His fandom took over. And look, I don't know if Ohtani's going to come here. I don't know that. But for everybody who is shocked at the fact that the Mets might be more involved in Ohtani than originally thought, is just not paying attention to what Steve Cohen has done since becoming owner. Since he became owner, he traded for Francisco Lindor. He made a lot of different moves. He made a couple of different trades here and there to get this team what it was in 2022, right? In 2021, he traded for Lindor, right? That was step one. right? You made a couple of trades, made a couple of signings in 2022. Nice. You won 101 games. Didn't get where we wanted to get, but there. Then we signed Scherzer in the process. And everybody forgets to the fact, and I keep on going back to Scherzer, and people are like, it's not the same thing. Yes, it is. And I'm going to tell you why. All you heard was Dodgers, 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 West Coast, West Coast, West Coast for Ohtani. Where did we hear that? We heard that 2 years ago with Max Scherzer when he was a free agent. All we heard, idiot Andy Martino, multiple guys reported, Scherzer's not going to come to the East Coast. He never wanted after he left Washington, he didn't want to go back to the East Coast, wants to be on the West Coast, wants to be a Dodger, blah, 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 blah. And what happened? Steve Cohen got Scherzer into the room. The Mets started pitching around DeGrom. Got Scherzer in the room with Scott Boras and says, what is it going to take to get you away from the Dodgers? And for anybody who says that the Dodgers didn't want to pay what the Mets paid for Scherzer is absolutely wrong. The only thing the Mets did was give him an extra year, which was a player option. That was it. Too many times, people like to make stupid comments and don't want to back it up. Well, I'll back it up for you, just to make it obvious. Max Scherzer was getting a 2-year deal for similar money from the Dodgers that the Mets were willing to give. Scherzer wasn't going to take less money or the same amount of years to go to the East Coast to stay on the West Coast where he was comfortable. Steve Cohen got him into the room and says, Scherzer, what will it take? Scherzer says, give me a third year. The Dodgers are not willing to go to a third year. At the time, it was a brilliant move by Steve Cohen. You don't think the best player who ever made free agency in Shohei Ohtani, Steve Cohen is just going to sit back and say, he don't want to come to the East Coast. I don't think he really wants to come to the Mets. Are you serious? And I said this over and over again. If you believe Shohei Ohtani is taking less money to go elsewhere, you are not paying attention to free agency in baseball over the last 10 years. Players do not take less money to go elsewhere. The only time when they take less money is what you see from Aaron Judge and Aaron Nola. Guys that went back to their teams that they were currently on. That's it. That is it. Money talks 99% of the time. The 1% is what you see with Aaron Judge and Aaron Nola. It's rare for a player to take less money, especially the best player on the market who is probably going to make the biggest contract in baseball history. You really think that there isn't pressure on Ohtani to take the most money? And I'm going to tell you this right now. If Shohei Ohtani takes, say, $50 million to go to the Dodgers and not take $50 million more to go to the Mets, this is going to be a huge problem within baseball. The player reps who represent the players in the union are not going to be happy, right? Scherzer, who is more comfortable on the West Coast, took that third year because not only does it obviously put more money in his pocket, it puts more money in other players' pockets. And when everybody's like, Ohtani doesn't care about money. Who does not care about money? Millionaires and billionaires care about money. They always will and always have been. Can we stop that whole mindset? He don't care about money. He cares about winning. Trust me, they care about both, probably money a little bit more. I don't care if you're from Japan or not. Money matters. Because if that's the case, everybody and their mother from Japan would be either on the Giants or the Yankees. The Giants, the Dodgers, the Angels, the Padres, the Mariners. All right? How did the Mets get Kodai Senga? You think because they didn't offer the most money? Even Garrett Cole, who was a Yankees fan, right? The Yankees still had to overpay to get Garrett Cole. You think it mattered that he was a Yankees fan? Yeah, it was cute after he signed the contract and had his press conference. It's silly to me that the reporters, the baseball reporters who just say, it's Dodgers, it's Dodgers, it's Dodgers. No doubt, no doubt, no doubt. Or all of a sudden, backtracking on their own reports. You know why? Because it was lazy reporting. It was lazy writers that didn't want to do the actual work to actually find out exactly what's been going on. It's just lazy just to say Dodgers. Because why? Because it's the easiest thing to do. They've done it time and time again. And it's replaying the exact same way in the exact same storyline with Max Scherzer. Yes, totally different, older player that was a pitcher only, and Shohei Ohtani's a two-way player, but it was happening the same way. Look at the storylines. It's the same exact thing over and over again. If you're not paying attention to the storyline and how these reporters are backtracking, all of a sudden we heard the Mariners. All of a sudden we heard the Cubs. All of a sudden we heard the Rangers. Do you not see what these reporters are doing? They continue to backtrack every single day on their reports because they have no actual report to report. So they do the easiest thing that falls on their lap. West Coast, Dodgers, a lot of money. Oh, duh. He don't have to buy a new house. He don't have to buy a new place in New York or on the East Coast. He only has to go about an hour away to the Dodgers. Sounds easy. Sounds like lazy reporting to me. And this whole thing with Howie Rose tells me that the reporting has been absolutely garbage. And that goes for everybody. That goes for Passan. That goes for stupid Martino. That goes for Sherman and Rosendahl and all of those guys. Buster Olney. All those guys are being extremely lazy with their reporting because they don't want to actually do the work to actually do the reporting. Imagine that. A reporter who has to do reporting. Imagine that. It's silly to me, guys. It's so silly to me. And let me just get to I do apologize. I got into my rant a little bit. I just wanted to John Bobby, I hope you're still here. Thank you for the super chat. Your prediction on who the Mets sign and trade for this offseason. So I have two different ways of going. I have a plan A and a plan B option, John. Number one is plan A. You sign Yamamoto, and then the Mets are playing with house money, in my opinion. Because you get Yamamoto, you have your 1-2 in Senga and Yamamoto. Now you can play, say, get middle of the road relievers, middle rotation guys, and you can worry about whatever you need to worry about. If the Mets really don't have to trade for a pitcher at that point, a top line starting pitcher, if they don't want to, they can trade for a middle of the road guy, or they can sign a couple of middle of the road guys. There's a ton of them in free agency. That's if they get Yamamoto. Now, if they strike out on Yamamoto, I don't think there's any doubt they're going to try to trade for a Corbin Burns or a Dylan Cease, even a Tyler Glasnow, who I'm a little worried about when it comes to injury. But I do know that plan B is going to require a trade to get an ace or get a top-line starting pitcher. If the Mets get Yamamoto and can sign a couple of middle of the rotation guys, which there's at least 15 of them on the market, now the Mets can say, all right, we got our core. What do we need here? What is gettable? That's what you have to understand. What is gettable, John? What is gettable? And I'm going to tell you what gettable is. Gettable is whatever you want it to be. If David Stearns, and again, we all forget about this, and nobody's talking about this, and I don't know why. David Stearns traded for an NL MVP in Christian Yelich not too long after he became the GM of the Milwaukee Brewers. The Milwaukee Brewers made a big trade for Christian Yelich not too long after he won an MVP. Don't think David Stearns is shy from making that type of decision. He took over the Brewers, and not too long after that, with a lot of the farm system that he did not draft, took some of those guys and got Christian Yelich in the trade. Don't think for a second that David Stearns is shy from making a blockbuster trade. There is no doubt in my mind that David Stearns, if the opportunity comes And I'm talking about Juan Soto, if you're not understanding what I'm saying here. If the opportunity comes, and people are always saying, oh, the Mets don't have what the Padres need. All right. But if you give a better package than everybody else, needs go out the window. All right. There's too many times when teams go after their needs and it burns them. You go after the best players when it comes to prospects. It's just that simple. The Mets didn't need another infielder prospect, but they were able to get one of the Rangers' best prospects in Acuna Jr., right? The Mets, needed outfield prospects, but the only way they would trade in Verlander if they got 2 top 10 prospects for Verlander, and they were able to get Clifford and Gilbert. Sometimes it's more about quantity. Sometimes it's more about just giving a package that nobody else can beat. And I'm sorry, guys, if you're worrying about trading prospects for a 25-year-old Soto, and you wish one of those guys are even half of what Soto is, because you're playing with fire. If there's an opportunity to get Juan Soto, you do it. And it goes back to the same way. So, in my opinion, John, to finish up your the question that I'm going to answer, Plan A is Yamamoto, and the Mets are playing with house money. They can go in a lot of different directions. Can they just sign a free agent DH? Sure, why not? That wouldn't be too bad. There's a couple of them out there that I think people will be happy with. But there's no reason why David Stearns, who just spent money on a top-line starting pitcher, is now options are a lot more. Options are available, right? Why are they available? Because he didn't have to use top prospects to obtain a frontline starting pitcher. So that's good news. That's why Yamamoto is so important. So if you get Yamamoto, Stearns can do whatever he wants. Hey, we can get a free agent bat as our DH. That's nice. But what if we can actually get, maybe the Mets do get Ohtani. That kind of solves the DH issue. And it kind of solves a lot of the offensive issues. But that's where I think I am when it comes to that, John. So thank you for the super chat. Let me just catch up with the comments. No, right wing. Ohtani is not the only answer, but it's a big goddamn answer. And there's no reason why the Mets can't get Yamamoto and Ohtani. Because why are people talking about, oh, the Dodgers can get Yamamoto and Ohtani, but the Mets can't? That makes no sense. Whoever, and I've seen reports about that. If you believe the Dodgers can get Yamamoto and Ohtani and the Mets can't, give me what you're smoking, because there's some good stuff. Because you're delusional. Anything the Dodgers can do, the Mets can do. And yes, David, it can be a Yamamoto situation. Yes, it could. Yeah, I understand that, right wing, but the Soler and JD Martinez are a 1-2 year option, maybe. And we talk about Ohtani like he's not a good player. Like, obviously, I'm sorry, but if you put Ohtani with Lindor and Alonso, your runs per game is going to go up a run at the very least. Even if they had seasons like last year, Lindor and Alonso, not great years, and put Ohtani there, you're automatically going to have easily a run and a half more per game. You know how many more games the Mets would have won if they would have had a run and a half more per game? Yeah, Peter, but again, the team didn't speak of Ohtani. It was a radio guy in Howie Rose, the Mets radio guy. That's fine. But you know what? You're going to tell me, Peter, that we haven't heard the Dodgers all along speak about Ohtani? It's been the worst kept secret. That's all you heard was Ohtani, Dodgers. Yeah, right wing. I don't look. how many more times are we going to talk about the Giants being desperate? They were desperate last year, and they lost out on Aaron Judge. They lost out on Carlos Correa, and they signed Michael Conforto. Like, could we stop talking about desperate Giants here? They struck out on how many guys? And again, the Giants are probably the third best team, maybe even the fourth best team in their division. Ohtani has lived in fourth place and fifth place in his division with the Angels. I don't see the Giants. And again, if the Giants get Ohtani, they have a ton of things to do, more even more than the Mets. They got a ton of things. So, I can see the Mets spending more money and getting a couple of pitchers and getting Ohtani. I don't know if the Giants are going to do all that. I don't see the Giants doing, like, if you're going to give $550 million to Ohtani, are the Giants going to do more than that? It's going to be hard for me to believe that. Yeah, Scherzer was a big union guy. I agree with that. But the issue is here is the fact that there's player reps all throughout the league on every team. Players don't take less money unless they're going back to the team they were formerly on. Again, go back. Look at all the free agent signings. Players that changed teams, they took more money. Garrett Cole took a hell of a lot more money to go to the Yankees, even though he was a Yankee fan. The Yankees had to overpay to get Garrett Cole. The Mets had to overpay to get Scherzer. Not everybody wants to be a Yankee. Not everybody wants to come to the Mets. Not everybody wants to come to New York or the East Coast. The weather sucks. We all know it. You live here, you know. Right? But in the offseason, you can move whatever the hell you want. New York, you got to pay a premium on any free agent. It's just the way you got to do business. Not only do we have one of the highest taxes in the country, you also got bad weather, and it's not easy to play in New York because of the scrutiny, because of the pressure. You pay a premium to get players to New York. That's why you probably have to overpay for Yamamoto a little bit. You're going to have to overpay for Ohtani. But if you really think Ohtani is going to take less money, you're just not paying attention. And yes, there is a move. I think it's the Tigers. Yeah. So the Tigers are getting closer and closer to Kenta Maeda signing. So that would be again, the Tigers are making moves. That's for sure. All right, guys, just give me a second. I'm just catching up on the Buzz Talk. I agree with that. The Mets are tight-lipped. And again, that's the perfect way to go about it. If there's one team that has been the most tight-lipped, it is the Mets over the last couple of years. And again, I don't think for a second, again, the Carlos Correa thing happened overnight. Nobody knew about it. Half the people were sleeping, and they woke up to that news. And again, the Mets didn't sign Carlos Correa, but it was the medical issues that were concerning. If there was no medical issues, Carlos Correa would be a Met. No, I don't think Ohtani's using the Mets to pushing his price up. Here's what's funny. Why would Ohtani use the Mets to push their price up? But if he really wants to be a Dodger, wouldn't you want to push the price up on the Dodgers by using the Giants who are in their division? Doesn't that make more sense? No GM, Mike. Stearns is your GM as well. Richard, if the Mets do get Ohtani and Yamamoto, I mean, what are their needs? Middle rotation and, middle of the rotation and bullpen arms. That's where you're going to see the rest of the year. Again, Mets fans, if they get Ohtani and Yamamoto, I'm going to tell you right now, the Sports Illustrated issue is going to have Senga, Ohtani, and Yamamoto on the front page. It's going to be like the Mets infield of the late 90s. That's the way it's going to look. And again, you'd be ecstatic, but there's work to do. You need a bullpen. You need a couple of more arms in the rotation. Yes, Ohtani in 2025 will be back pitching, but 2024, he's not going to help you. So you got to need that as well. Teddy, I agree with that. Yeah, easy. I don't believe that one bit, because if that was the case, then you would have heard more about the Mets not being. You would have heard a little bit more of the Mets not being in Ohtani. Yeah, you never heard anybody say the Mets are out on Ohtani, right? Don't believe Andy Martino, who is a Yankee shill. All right, right? Andy Martino was a Mets beat reporter and then was now a Mets and Yankees beat reporter for SNY, who is the Mets station. Yet he wrote a book about the Yankees. So don't tell me that he's not a Yankee shill. And he said that, the Mets aren't really in on Ohtani. That makes no sense. And by the way, a lot of us watched the World Baseball Classic, right? The first thing everybody noticed was Steve Cohen in Japan during the qualifying round when Japan was playing in Japan. Who was playing in Japan? Yamamoto, Shohei Ohtani, Kodai Senga. Like, come on, guys. Like, let's go. You got to pay attention here. Well, S-Man, yes, they said that Ohtani, he hit for the Angels when he was already hurt. So I think he'll be fine. No, the Giants aren't. The Mets, the Angels are. And I am behind on the comments, guys. I'm catching up, I promise. Giants aren't. The Mets, the Angels are. But let's be honest. The Giants are the fourth best team in the West. You got to give credit to the D-backs. The Dodgers are the Dodgers. And the Padres still are very talented. We talk about, the Mets need more than Ohtani. Well, the Giants need a lot more than Ohtani too. David, I agree. Soto is the better investment, but there's no guarantee you're going to have the best offer for Juan Soto. All you need is a hell of a lot of money for Ohtani. Ohtani's a lot more gettable than Juan Soto, because not only do you have to trade for Juan Soto, you also have to sign him to a big extension. All you have to do with Ohtani is sign him for big money, and you keep all your prospects. That's why Ohtani is more gettable than Juan Soto. Yeah, right wing. But again, have you met a player, mediocre or great, that's come to New York and took, that wasn't overpaid? You come to New York, every New York teams overpay for almost every free agent. It's just how it is. So overpaying is a known entity. You're supposed to know that already. It's just how it is. Tax purposes, again, I just went over it. Yeah, Jay, they could say all they want, but they also thought the Mets weren't going to have a $330 million payroll either, and they did. Because everybody, remember, last offseason, they were like, Cohen's not going to go over $300 million, and he blew past it. Again, they could be $130 million. That does not mean they're going to get Ohtani. Again, Jay, that's the other thing. That is another lazy way of reporters to look at it. They have $130 million in payroll, so they must get. Obviously, they're going to get Ohtani because they lowered their payroll and they didn't spend nothing last year. Come on. Like, again, that's just lazy reporting. How about doing actual work? How about talking to people and listening to people and not just talking to people on the West Coast. What the hell you think people on the West Coast are going to say? And then all of a sudden, over the last 2 weeks, the Cubs. Last time I checked, the Cubs are pretty East Coast from all the other West Coast teams that they were talking about, right? Chicago has probably worse weather than New York. It's basically Canada. I mean, come on, guys. Like, it's so stupid how these reporters, the same reporters who was just, in bed with the Dodgers over Ohtani, are the same guys that are reporting about the Cubs now. Oh, the Cubs are very serious candidates for Ohtani. Why? That's pretty damn east to me. You're in the middle of the country in a state that's basically Canada. I mean, come on. Like, it's silly. It's very silly. Yeah, bravo. The Braves do have tighter lips, but they also have tight pockets. All right, let's go. I'm catching up, guys. I'm catching up. I promise. No, Camel Toe Harris. No, Mets fans don't think that. Listen, weren't the Yankees or the Dodgers always saying they can get everybody? The Mets have the richest owner in baseball. If the Mets fans don't believe that, then you're wasting your time. I'm trying to catch up, guys. I promise. I'm catching up. Hold on. Yeah, Richard, exactly. But again, Nola took less money to go back to where he was comfortable on the team he was already on. Yeah, the Giants are going to overpay too. Of course they are. Soto is Dominican, yes. Ohtani is 30. All right, I'm catching up, guys. I'm trying to catch up. Ohtani is 29, but yes, he's 29, but he's going to be I caught up. Look at that. Carlos, Ohtani will bring the warm weather to New York. Yeah, he will because he'll pack Citi Field. Urza wants Yoshi. We all want Yoshi. Do you think Pete went see Ohtani? I don't know about that, but look, I don't know. Pete was in New York for whatever reason. I mean, it could be contract talks. David Stern says he wasn't against contract talks. He could have been in New York for contract talks. He could have been in New York again. We don't know if Ohtani met with teams. We don't know that. Everybody assumes that he didn't. But everybody, like, whatever all the reporters are saying combined, when they all have similar reports, tells me that Ohtani's going to make his decision on during the winter meetings. And the reason why I say that, what was the point of the winter meetings? For teams, executives, and players to get in one hotel in their own rooms and get them in there to make big signings and bigger acquisitions, right? To announce it for the MLB world to watch, right? The last couple of years, the MLB meetings have been mediocre at best. There hasn't been a lot of noise. The last time there was a lot of noise during the winter meetings was when the Marlins started signing everybody when they got their new ballpark. That was when the Marlins just kept on signing people once they got their new ballpark. That was the biggest winter meetings that I can remember, right? Ever since then, the winter meetings have been boring. The winter meetings are going to be set up for Ohtani and MLB perfectly. All eyes are going to be on the winter meetings from the baseball fans. Baseball wants a type of scenario where they set up a winter meetings with all eyes on them for something to happen big. There's a lot of pressure on Ohtani, and everybody believes that Ohtani's going to sign during the winter meetings. It's the perfect scenario. It's like the decision with LeBron James. Those 3 or 4 days of the winter meetings is perfect scenario. Ohtani can walk over to one hotel room, talk to the Mets. The next hotel room, talk to the Dodgers, talk to the Giants, the Rangers, the Cubs, whoever. In all one area. Ohtani's going to make his decision at the winter meetings. And when Ohtani makes a decision, I wouldn't be surprised a little bit after that, Yamamoto makes his decision. It's set up perfectly for Ohtani to make his decision so they can announce it to the world during the winter meetings that Ohtani has signed. It's going to be like the decision with LeBron all those years ago with ESPN when he says he's going to take his talents to South Beach. It's going to be, that's what they're setting up for. Because the last couple of years, there's been a lot of talk about the winter meetings basically being a waste. Spending a ton of money, bringing all the teams there, basically taking over a hotel. I believe it's in Nashville. And nothing really happened. A couple of small trades, a couple of small signings, nothing crazy. Major League Baseball set up the winter meetings for big things to happen, to broadcast it to the world when all the eyes are on Major League Baseball during the winter meetings. Niner gang, I do think the Yankees have a really good shot of getting Soto. The problem is I don't trust Brian Cashman because he's been a prospect hugger for years, and I don't know if he's willing, especially with the problems the Yankees are going to be having with pitching over the next couple of years. You're getting older, injury-prone Rondon. Even though Gerrit Cole won the Cy Young, he is 33 years old. He's getting up there in age. How many good years he's going to have? The Yankees don't have a lot of young pitching. And if they trade their young pitching, if they trade a Michael King and another top pitching prospect and maybe a Peraza, you're getting rid of your two young arms that you can use in this rotation, and you're praying that Rodon and Gerrit Cole, at least Gerrit Cole can be at least close to what he was this year, and Rodon to turn it around, which is probably unlikely. And you get a Nestor Cortez who has shoulder issues after pitching the most innings of his career in 2022. So if you have to trade Michael King and a top pitching prospect with Peraza to get Soto, excellent. I mean, that 1-2 punch of Aaron Judge and Soto, but are you going to win a lot of games 9-8? Because after Gerrit Cole, who do you trust in that rotation? And if the Yankees trade for Juan Soto, they're going to do everything they can to sign him long term. That probably takes him out of a player like Yamamoto. You really think the Yankees are going to spend $700 million on two players? They haven't really been spending money over the last couple of years, and Yankee fans know that. Frank, that's a great question, Frank. Let me post that up there. If we get Ohtani and Yamamoto, does that mean no extension for Alonso? No, because Steve Cohen is the richest owner in baseball. That's not going to prevent it. If you get Ohtani and Yamamoto, you're telling the organization and baseball you're going for it. You got a young Yamamoto and you got a 30-year-old Ohtani. You're clearly going for it over the next 3 to 4 years when this core of Alonso, McNeil, Nimmo, Lindor is in their prime. I mean, it's stupid to sign Ohtani and Yamamoto and not extend Alonso. Now, I don't think the Mets are going to extend Alonso this season. I think they're going to let him go to free agency just like they did with Brandon Nimmo, and they says, find your best offer. Nimmo found his best offer, which was from the Colorado Rockies, apparently, who was willing to give him 7 years. And the Mets came back and says, okay, we'll give you 8 years and a little bit more money. Boom, deal signed. I think that's going to happen similar with Alonso. If Cohen wants Alonso, there's no point of overpaying Alonso with an extension when you're only bidding against yourself while you still have Alonso on the contract. It makes no sense. If you're always going to have the biggest offer for Alonso, let him go out and find the best offer. Because if Alonso's expecting 10 years, $300 million, I would be shocked if a team gives it to him. But if there's a team that does give it to him and offer it to him, the Mets will have to match it and, tip their cap and says, all right, you got us. What's the problem? There's no problem in that situation. But to bid against yourself, it's kind of silly. It makes no sense. The same people who got mad at Lindor's contract are telling the Mets to do the exact same thing with Alonso. So if you're mad about what the Mets did by basically bidding against themselves and overpaying for Francisco Lindor to extend him, you're okay with doing the same thing that you complained about a couple of years ago with Lindor for Alonso. The business sense makes no sense, because if Alonso has an okay, say if Alonso has a year like he had in 2023, low average, high home runs, a ton of RBIs, good season, hell of a lot of power, been getting better and better defensively every year. You think Alonso's going to get $300 million on the market that he's looking for? Probably not. Now, again, if he has an Aaron Judge type of season, well, you tip the cap and you pay him. It's just that simple. If they sign Rhys Hoskins, that means no Pete. I don't believe that at all, because Rhys Hoskins is going to take a 1-year deal, a 1-year prove-it deal, because nobody's going to give him a multi-year deal. Nobody's coming off an ACL injury. Yeah, okay, John, but you keep on talking about closer to Japan. It's already been debunked that location and demographic isn't as much of a priority as it was when Ohtani was coming from Japan for the first time. You got to get that part out of your head. And it is lazy reporting about the Dodgers, because the reporters don't have to do no work. West Coast Dodgers, winning franchise. Okay, that's great. That's fine. But again, we talk about the Mets needing more than Ohtani. The Dodgers do as well. Why do you think people are talking about pitching with the Dodgers? I mean, how many more times are they going to throw out Clayton Kershaw? Their rotation constantly gets hurt. They need a ton of pitching as well. And look, they've been winning. I'll give you that. That's fine. But again, why haven't Ohtani signed with the Dodgers already? If it's that cut and dry, why hasn't he already been talking and negotiating and basically on the verge of signing with the Dodgers? Because it's not that cut and dry. If it was that simple, it would already be happening. Yeah, Nina, I agree with that. I know. I saw that too. They're looking to bring back Montas. And again, I'm telling you, and people were like, oh, and even Andy Martinez was like, oh, Yamamoto has, the Yankees have a better chance of getting Yamamoto than the Mets. What? How does that make sense? It makes no sense. Because if the Yankees get Yamamoto, they're already in trouble getting offense that they need. They are stuck on Stanton. And look, this is not a Mets fan being, going after the Yankees like that, because I'm one of the, look, I have more Braves subscribers, Braves fan subscribers than I couldn't even imagine, and Yankee fan subscribers. The reason why, because yeah, I might, put my shots in every now and then, just like you guys do with my team, but I'm fair with the situation, right? I mean, look at the Yankees when it came to trying, like, the money that they spent has been bad. You gave an extra year for Rodon, who was constantly injured. And now the Yankees might have to go after another starter because they screwed up on the Rodon situation. And again, I do think the Yankees have a good shot at getting Soto, but I don't trust Brian Cashman. And not even I don't trust Brian Cashman. It's the fact that you got a 33-year-old Garrett Cole, who there's a pretty good chance he's probably not going to have the same year he had last year. You have Rodon, who's a question mark. Michael King, who pitched the most innings of his career, who's going to be in the Yankees rotation. You got Clark Schmidt, who is a solid pitcher. He looked better in the second half. And then what? If Garrett Cole doesn't have a similar year like he did last year, clearly the Yankees are in trouble, no? And that's the situation I think they're in. And if the Yankees do trade, You hear a lot about, the Padres want pitcher for Juan Soto. They're going to want a ready starter for the major leagues, and that's Michael King. Say if the Yankees have to give up Michael King, another top pitching prospect, and Peraza for Soto, well, that's great. Your offense gets help, but you're hurting your rotation. Because I don't see the Yankees spending more money knowing they have to sign Juan Soto to a massive deal to save that trade. It's crazy, but that's just what you have to do. Dre, yeah, I would. Or for Glass now, I don't even think you have to give that much for Glass now. I mean, maybe, but and Margot, I don't trust Tyler Glass now because he's injury prone. And again, Alex Ramirez had a down year last year, but you see, I would be. It would be tough for me to make that trade, but see, that's tough because I don't mind that trade. Would I be happy with it? Sure, you get a top line starter, but I don't think the Mets have to do that if they sign Yamamoto. They can use some of those guys that you just named and an extra prospect or two to get Juan Soto. If the Mets get Yamamoto. All right, guys, I'm catching up. Hold on. Yeah, but Tilly, I understand that. But if you really think about it, the Yankees are picking 25th, 26th, 27th almost every year. And their drafting is terrible. So, and listen, Hal is not going over the luxury tax because of draft picks. He's not going over that because he believes that anything over luxury tax isn't a guarantee of winning the World Series, which is true. But once again, it's been proven that a top 10 payroll wins World Series. And again, the Yankees haven't been drafting well anyway. So if they're worried about draft picks, then, and that's you never heard that out of Hal Steinbrenner or Cashman's mouth when it came to luxury tax. It's always been about not paying the third luxury tax, the Steve Cohen tax. Because for whatever reason, Hal says, his shareholders won't be happy about that. You never heard the Yankees talk about draft picks. You know why? Because they're not drafting in the top 10 ever. So drafting in the top 20 or the 25th isn't that much. Ain't really going to help you if you don't draft well anyway. And the Yankees don't draft well. Mike, we're not going to trade Pete Alonso unless the Mets are really bad at the trade deadline. Yeah, but again, here's the problem, Tilly, with the whole Yankee situation with Soto. You better hope Soto goes to free agency because if there's a team out there that trades for him and extends him, getting under that big old luxury tax and, getting under that tax and it resets will mean absolutely nothing if Soto doesn't become available. So you're playing with fire there. Elliot, the only reason why I talked about McNeil and the poll was because there's been a lot of talk about the Seattle Mariners, who's been on Jeff McNeil ever since the Diaz trade. There's been a lot of talk that the Mets can get a quality pitcher back and maybe a bat back for Jeff McNeil. Again, I don't think the Mets are going to trade Jeff McNeil. I think you can use Jeff McNeil in a better package if you really wanted to trade Jeff McNeil. The only reason why I said it because there's been a lot of noise about Seattle really trying to get McNeil. And with that being said, I think the Mets have to get back something they really, really need because McNeil can be expendable if you get what you need coming back. Like say if the Mets fail on Yamamoto and, McNeil and maybe somebody else can get you a pretty good pitcher coming back, you might have to think about it because you do have Mauricio who can slot into second base with no problem. And again, I'm not the biggest Jeff McNeil fan. I think Jeff McNeil has seasons like he'll have a batting title and then he'll have a year like last year. It's a good year, bad year, good year, bad year situation. And, we're hoping 2024 is the good year, but you can't. Again, Jeff McNeil does two things well. He's versatile, can play in a lot of positions, but as an offensive player, if Jeff McNeil doesn't bat 300, he's very useless offensively. He doesn't hit for power. He's not an RBI guy. So if he doesn't hit for average, then he hurts this lineup big time because you have nowhere to put him in a lineup. The reason why the Mets were so good in 2022 because McNeil was batting what we expect him to bat, obviously way over 300. But if he bats 300, he is so potent for this lineup. But if he doesn't bat 300 and he bats 250, 260, that doesn't help this team at all because he doesn't do nothing else well offensively. I love him that he plays multiple positions. But if McNeil's going to be batting at the top of this order or even, 6th or 7th, he's really not keeping this lineup moving because what you need from McNeil is average. On base and average. That's what you need from Jeff McNeil. And if you don't get that, he's basically a defensive player that can play in multiple positions. That's why I brought that poll up. Because there's been a lot of talk, a lot of chatter about the Mariners really interested in Jeff McNeil. I don't think Stearns is stupid enough to trade him for basically nothing. So I don't think it's going to happen, but I just thought I'd bring that up. Tilly, again, it's just a lazy narrative just to say the Dodgers are getting Ohtani. It's just like the reporters being lazy. Oh, the reporters write that story. You know why? So they can go on to everything else because if it does happen, oh, great. They were right, but they really didn't work hard to do it. And again, if the Dodgers and Ohtani were so set in stone, it would have happened already. Why even bother? You're probably going to get $500 million anyway, even if you don't try. But yet, over the last week or so, all of a sudden the Cubs come to the Mets. The Red Sox, the Mets even more. It's starting to be silly now that reporters are backtracking on the Dodgers situation, even though people believe the Dodgers are the favorite, which they should be. But they're saying it's being set in stone is just silly to me. Jung-Ho Lee is a nice option, Arcade, but I don't see the Mets going after him. Again, it really does depend on what the Mets are going to do, again, in free agency. Because I think Jung-Ho Lee is going to probably be posted in the next week or two. He hasn't been posted yet. So it's going to be interesting to see because whoever loses out on Ohtani is probably going to pivot to a guy that's an average guy, another Jeff McNeil, basically. It's going to be very interesting. Well, yeah, the Giants were in on everybody last year, and they ended up with Michael Conforto. So, well, Tilly, that's the reason why so many teams that need a frontline starter are in on Yamamoto. God, that's funny. All right, guys. So we're going to end it right here in a few minutes. Let me just check the comments one last time. Elliot, I do think, and again, they talked about it that, being the hitting coach and just being the hitting coach, you focus on just the hitters, right? When Chavez was the bench coach, there's more responsibility as the bench coach. So he couldn't spend all his time with the hitters. That's why you have a hitting coach. So I do think it's going to help that Chavez is back being a hitting coach with Jeremy Bonds I think it's going to make a ton of difference because Eric Chavez, yes, he's involved with analytics and uses analytics, but he's more of a hands-on guy. When guys are having problems, he goes to the video and says, all right, look what you're doing here. Your hands are a little bit raised. You're crow hopping a little bit. You're using your tippy toeing a little bit more. You're stepping in the bucket, stuff like that. All right. David, well, your sister wants to throw herself. Very respectfully, I hope she does. Like, get Soto here by any means necessary. All right, guys. So that's another Mets hot stove in the books. I do appreciate everybody spending the hour with me today, going over Ohtani, the Howie Rose tweet, John Gibbons as the bench coach, Antoine Richardson, and Mike Sawbor as your new first base and third base coach. So the Mets have their coach in all set in stone. Eric Chavez going back to hitting coach. You got Jeremy Hefner coming back. So the coaching staff is already ready to go. We already got scouting director in Gross, who came from the Astros. Everything falling into place, and all that needs to be done is player acquisition falling into place. In the coming days, guys, Thanksgiving is over. Black Friday is over. Monday, you're going to start hearing a lot because you're only a week away from the winter meetings, and that's when I believe Ohtani is going to sign. So, with that said, guys, everybody have a great night. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Stay safe. Enjoy your weekend. And oh, by the way, go blue. Michigan, you're going to beat Ohio State. That's my team right there. It's my college. Everybody, with that said, have a great night. As always, Mets fans, let's go Mets. I'll see you tomorrow night for MLB Free Agent Frenzy, 6:30, right here on Talking Mets with Rob. Everybody have a good night. Let's go Mets. See you next time, guys.
Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kids.